Just days after Israelis suffered the worst mass slaughter since the Holocaust, the left-wing media were quick to blame Israel for the death of some 500 women and children at Gaza's Al-Habi Arab Hospital. Major news outlets from the AP and Reuters to the New York Times and PBS breathlessly blasted the accusatory headline of their well-heeled evil Israel storyline with absolutely no proof. Their source, you ask? Well, it was the Gaza Ministry of Health, which of course is a Hamas designated and perpetually lying terrorist organization, proxy, if you will. The New York Times even ran the explosive front page story alongside an image of a bombed out and decimated structure. This was not the hospital, but undoubtedly misled many readers to believe that it was. So, is there an underpinning of anti-Semitism that's starting to show through the Fourth Estate, and is Hamas playing into our journalistic weaknesses? Joining us now with some insight is media and public relations expert Adam Weiss to talk more about that. Adam, that was a lot to take in, so start wherever you choose. Basically, the mainstream media sucks, I'll just put it that way, but if you want to take it from there, please have at it.
Yeah, terrible, Terrence, and because it was only a few days after this horrific, barbaric, evil acts that we had coming out of from Israel that they ran these headlines, and within minutes that they said that, you know, with the Gaza Health Ministry, give me a break. This is who we use as a source. And if you take a look at, we have an information war here and we have a real war, right? This information was really important that we get the facts straight here, because if you look at the chain of events here, right? Absolutely. When that came out, what happened a couple of days later? We had this buildup of these protests, college campuses. And then we have protests around the country now. And now we have, as I was sitting watching CNN yesterday, they're running a segment about anti-Muslim rhetoric, anti-Muslim hate. And at the same time on my Instagram, there's a mob of Muslims rushing in an airport in Dagestan looking to lynch Jews. Now, what's wrong with this? It looked to mainstream media until a few hours ago, because I Googled all this, maybe 5 or 6 hours ago, to finally run that story of mobs of, these are some of the toughest guys in the world, Dagestan. That's where all the world champion UFC fighters come from. Running into airports, looking to lynch Jews. And even those headlines right now, it's like mobs looking for flight. Mobs of protesters looking for an airplane. No, they weren't looking for an airplane. They were looking for Jews to go after and lynch, not looking for a plane. Get the headlines right, mainstream media. Get your facts right. Let's start playing these, start playing this straight up, because this is life and death here. This isn't the usual, bias we see in America that this is going to kill people.
You know, Adam, this is cultural Marxism at work inside the mainstream media. They love to, go with this whole social justice, the poor Palestinian people. Hold on for a second. I praise God for American Sunrise. I praise God for Real America's Voice, who doesn't buy into the crap that this is a genocide. That's the word, a genocide in Gaza. I've done some research on what genocide specifically means. It talks about intent to kill a racial or ethnic minority. They're not doing that. Israel's not doing that. If they had the intent to kill the Palestinian people, to kill a racial or ethnic minority, they wouldn't give them a heads up to head south. They wouldn't be doing X, Y, and Z to actually, they're going after Hamas. And shame on the mainstream, the liberal media, the legacy media, to use those words, because those are buzzwords in an informational media war, Adam.
Yeah, 100%, David. And yesterday, the New York Times had 4 or 5 stories in a row on their front page, anti-Israel. One of them says how years of Israel's failures on Hamas led to a devastating attack. Israel's failure is what? Letting 20, 30, 100,000 Palestinians in from the West Bank and Gaza to work every day, freely come in and work, pray, make money, and go back home. Letting the Palestinian Authority and the Hamas run both the West Bank and Gaza freely for almost 20 years now. Nothing. Go run it yourself. Have your own government. Bring in, and what were they doing? For loads of money from Iran to create this monster of missiles and weaponry to just plan. And what were they doing walking in every day? Not going to work. They were spying on the Israelis' kibbutzes to plan on how we're going to attack and kill Jews. That's what they're doing. While Israelis was accepting freedom and allowing them in, do you think any Israelis were allowed to go to Gaza and work?
Yeah, you know, Adam,
right.
my insight into Israel, I went on with a women's delegation of journalists, and I believe, the only conservative in the entire group to Israel. And it still had an amazing time, but they literally put me in the back of the bus, and they weren't nice to me. They bullied me. Yeah, I can handle it. I'm a full adult. But it was interesting to watch how pro-Arab they just all were. It just was. They hated everything about Israel, and I wonder, you know, the moment that I figured out what was really going on was when I looked at security systems in neighborhoods. Sounds simple, but I noticed that none of the Islamic neighborhoods had security gates and all the things around them. And all of the Jewish neighborhoods had tons of security and gates and everything else. And why do you suppose that might be? You know, if you're worried about who's in danger, whose life was really in danger, it was so obvious everywhere you went that it was the Jewish people's lives that were in danger. And when I was at where Jesus was buried, and they were piping in the super loud prayers of the Muslim prayers all day, all the time, I thought, wow, I mean, I don't even like the word tolerant, but just almost too tolerant, the Israeli law, right, to allow this piping music blaring at you while you're trying to look at where Jesus died and was buried. And that's when I really realized that there's a whole different culture there. But it's not fair that our American media can just lie like this and get away with it. So for all we can complain about it and say it's wrong, can the families maybe of those who were killed or kidnapped, the American families, could they maybe sue some of these news outlets that are reporting this propaganda, if you know?
I wish we had better laws that can make people sue, because what's happening now is such an injustice and travesty. It's terrific. I was at a big fundraiser last week, Algamina, which is a publication and a think tank for protecting Jews, and they get it. They really get it now, because for decades, people didn't get it. But thankfully, we have American Sunrise. But if you go into Tel Aviv, we go into any big city, right? Tel Aviv and all the big cities in Israel, there's mosques there. There's Arabs mosques in these cities.
Everywhere.
You think if we went to Gaza right now, or any of the Palestinian authorities, there's one synagogue? No, there's not even a Jew. So it's even at this moment in this crisis, there's still a mosque going and they're still praying. That's how open Israel is right now, even during these stressful and tumultuous times that they have to go through, which is, you know, I wish we had somewhat of a fair media. It's terrible. Thankfully, we have voices like ours.